Video games are built on conflict. Whether it's obstacles, enemies, and whatever else, there's always something to overcome, and the biggest possible instance of that is war. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, the war games of 2022 to look out for. Starting off at number 10, it's Asanzo, a World War I first-person shooter taking place on alpine peaks and idyllic towns in northern Italy. While the game doesn't exclusively take place in mountains, the mountain idea adds a lot of different tactical considerations and makes a fairly unique sounding game. As you know, we've seen a million World War I and World War II games, but in terms of footage, this one actually kind of succeeds in at least looking like something a little bit different. For one, it's very colorful, and as well as including some great recreations of Italian towns, it's part of a series of World War I games from developer M2H that plops you in different locations that require different approaches. Asanzo is coming to the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and PC summer 2022. At number 9 is Warno, a World War III battle simulator from Eugen Systems, in which a Cold War turns hot in 1989, obviously an alternate history game, which is currently in early access and has a ton of praise coming from its small but fairly dedicated user base. It's definitely one to look out for because it has 10v10 matches with what is admittedly not the biggest player base, and nobody really seems to complain about it. For good reason too, it doesn't take too long to get into a match, it's paced really well, it doesn't force you to micromanage in a way that you get bored, and all of the action is absolutely beautiful. Like, this is really an incredible looking game, on top of being one that is organized to play really well. The full version of Warno is supposedly coming later this year to the PC. At number 8 is Dune Spice Wars, a highly stylized 4X real-time strategy that is getting a lot of praise for being like the most faithful Dune attempt at a video game. I've seen people call it kind of like Civilization in real time, and also obviously sci-fi fantasy. The goal is to win control over everything, and that's done by either diplomacy or a military campaign. It's really up to you. You pick one of the 4 factions, which if you're familiar with Dune, you will immediately be familiar with. And there's not a whole lot in the way of narrative currently. It's in early access, and they're focusing on the stuff that is basically important. The gameplay and the resource management, of course, which they get very correct. It has a lot of potential, and as they've been slowly dropping little narrative elements in, it starts to feel a little bit more like a lived-in universe. Like I said, Dune Spice Wars is in early access. You can play it right now on PC, and it continues to be expanded upon all the time. At number 7 is Men of War, the follow-up to the highly acclaimed original game. Now, what they're boasting about in the new version of the game is their new advanced artificial intelligence, which will apparently be a lot more difficult and dynamic, as well as the cinematic presentation they'll be showing. You'll obviously be commanding your army from the normal types of perspectives, but you'll see the action play out in very cinematic camera angles and with very good visuals, if the trailer is anything to go by. Of course, the developer's emphasis is on historical accuracy and a lot of different game modes, so Men of War 2 should be a rich experience with a lot of content. We will be seeing the game on PC sometime this year. And number 6 is Sniper Elite 5, a very recent release that takes a wide-open battlefield approach to 1944 France, in which you will be sniping your way through the Nazi-occupied countryside. This one was incredibly well received pretty much across the board by both critics and fans alike. This is a game that's not just about sniping, it's also about stealth and really insane takedowns. Really, it's a series that has sort of set itself apart from basically everything else, not just in its very deliberate style of play, but also in the fact that it revels in success. The slow motion death cam is totally insane. It looks like something out of Mortal Kombat. It's one that is absolutely worth your time. Sniper Elite 5 is out on the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and PC right now, so go play it. And number 5 is Medic Pacific War, where you play as a field medic on the Pacific front, where you have to make a bunch of choices as to what to do, who to save, how to do it, where to do it, to attempt to save lives on the battlefield, while also doing everything you can to preserve your own, remembering that it is a war zone and that all of your actions will change the outcome of the battle. It's definitely a unique take on a war game because you don't see a whole lot of non-combat oriented war games for obvious reasons, but it's a pretty solid looking game built on top of that concept. Medic Pacific War is coming to PC sometime this year. And number 4 is Company of Heroes 3, an RTS, which introduces a new feature to the series called Tactical Pause, in which you'll pause the battle, issue a bunch of commands, and they'll be performed in a queue when the game is resumed. This being a real-time strategy game that adds another layer, as well as an improved destruction system that takes where they were last game and makes it more granular. So individual tiles, bricks, pieces of buildings will all be just sort of coming apart. The game's oriented itself towards the Mediterranean. It's also got a huge vehicle roster, from tanks to recon vehicles and even repair vehicles that you can go out on the battlefield and repair and steal vehicles that the enemy has abandoned on the warfield. It is an impressive looking game from developer Relic Entertainment, which will be landing on the PC sometime later this year. And number 3 is Expeditions Rome, a tactical role-playing game. Expeditions takes a different approach to war games in that it's an RPG where you have to scout various sectors of a region, find and recover resources, and then invade military strong points. It does have a couple of different types of battles. There's story battles and legionary battles. The story battles obviously advance the plot, which takes place during the later years of the Roman Republic and involves Caesar, Cicero, Cato, all of those. From what I've played of this one, it's a lot of fun, and the story, while it takes a little while to get going, is actually worthwhile, and it does a good job in keeping itself flexible, so if you have a different style of play, that is possible to play out. Expeditions Rome is out on Microsoft Windows. It's definitely a good one. And number 2 is Rattenreich, a frankly surprising game. If I told you a good-looking RTS featuring anthropomorphic rats, mice, lizards, and roaches was on its way, I might sound like I'm talking about something totally off the wall, but that's exactly what this looks like. It features all of that and manages to have a lot of novel and frankly cool-looking mechanics like world destruction and a lot of customization of technique and units, as well as just a fairly unique setting for a war game. You don't usually see stuff like this. Its control scheme and its camera are some of the more interesting and maybe novel elements of it. It's something that looks different, and it makes total sense why for their trailer they didn't do something story oriented but rather showed gameplay. It's because it's intriguing. Rattenreich is coming out on PC in September. And finally, at number 1 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Now, a few years ago, Activision Blizzard rebooted Call of Duty Modern Warfare. This is the sequel in this new rebooted timeline, and it's pretty exciting. We just got new gameplay footage of it, and it is a really tense, atmospheric mission on a cargo ship in the middle of a storm to prevent the launch of a missile. Just to be frank, this is an incredible looking game. I know we've all seen a million Call of Duty games at this point, but just to be frank, this one has done a great job utilizing the boat in a storm gimmick. Honestly, it reminded me of Metal Gear Solid 2 without really being anything like it. The fact that they've managed to create such a great thick narrative atmosphere without really having a narrative other than, hey, there's a missile, we got to stop it, bodes very, very well for the immersion factor of the game. Honestly, next year they seemingly don't have a Call of Duty game coming out, so I think they're really wanting to leave a mark with this one. It shows that it's supposed to be a big release, and it's not easy to generate excitement, at least for me, in a Call of Duty game, but this trailer really did a good job of doing just that. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is coming to PC, the Xboxes, the PlayStations, and it's coming on October 27th. we've got a couple of bonus games for you. First, Warhammer 40k Darktide, the 40k version of Vermintide that does orient itself a little bit more towards shooting, given Vermintide is such a melee-oriented game. It's not a shooter, but it does up that area a lot. That's coming to Xbox Series and PC on September 13th. War Hospital, which is a kind of combination field hospital simulator, as well as an isometric real-time strategy survival game. That's coming in Q4 of this year. Next is Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. I mean, it's a war among the stars, obviously, but it's also a humorous take on these games that unfortunately has to include the 9th movie. Next is Regiments, a real-time tactics game set in Germany in 1989, followed by Starship Troopers Tehran Command, an RTS, and Diplomacy is Not an Option, also a strategy game. That's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.